This is E.B. Smith with Facts Matter. Today we're going to continue our conversation about the real state of Black America. But today we're going to take a little twist on the show today. I want to talk about the things that we do that hinder us from being successful. What are those things? What are the things that we're doing to create that narrative that Black people will never overcome? We'll never get to a position where we are doing well. And as usual, I got the contributor to the show is Mutawaf Shaheed. He's going to definitely give you some perspective that are deeper than me. He's from a different generation, and he has a lot more knowledge and wisdom in this thing. And so I've asked him to come in and give me a perspective because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of lost, Mutawaf.
Well, actually, E.B., it's you're really never left alone to develop on your own. Okay, as I mentioned to you in another show we did, that there's always a third party in the wings. You're never left alone on any level. And from the time that you're born until the time you die, look at your life as like a straight line. And all along that line, your life becomes like a gauntlet. So some of the very people that you started off with in school become your enemies simply because the system dictates a certain kind of behavior and certain kind of responsibilities that these people who get hired
EBS
have.
Radio.
And part of that responsibility that they have is to limit you, to undermine you, to make sure that you cannot get but so far. And what happens during the 60s, our people began to realize that they had to do more in order to achieve things. And the whole process of unity came under attack by the government because in unity there was treason. And I say that to say that any time that we as a people try to unify on any level, it's a threat to the status quo. Now, that doesn't mean we don't bear some responsibility as a people for trying to overcome that. In the 60s, we did that. We did a lot of that in the 60s, okay? So then came this individualism that was the narrative that was pushed by the status quo. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You can do this, and you have the great individual. They have never worked as individuals. They've always worked as a group of people. The Fortune 500 companies do business with Fortune 500 companies. The Fortune 1000 companies do business with the Fortune 1000 companies. Okay? And what they have talked about fairness, trying to undermine your individuality as a person who wants to unify with other blacks to do something, to put something together. Then they start talking about fairness. And then when somebody who comes into your neighborhood who's new, and they come into your neighborhood to do business, this fairness propaganda kicks in. And so now the guy you were doing business with all the time, and you were helping him take care of his family, and they were doing all of these good things and providing services and goods to the community, now has been undermined because they have given you this philosophy on fairness, which they don't practice at all. Okay, so what happens is the younger people, and you're talking about our generation, your generation, the younger people from your basic generation are all on individualism. They're not on unifying on anything.
You think they were taught that? Was that a way that the elite uses to separate us by teaching us those
exactly. Those are the kind of things that are taught. And then the natural order of things has been taken out of order. Okay, by all of these other distractions, you're on your way going to the store, and you have a reason for going to the store because you're trying to buy something that's going to benefit your family. But on the way to the store, you have a guy approaching you telling he's a giraffe. And then you get further down the street and somebody's saying, you see that guy down there, he say he's a giraffe. I like to do this to him and that to him. So it takes away your focus, and all you're trying to do is go to the store to bring something back home to your family.
Many of us get caught up in the same things that they care about, which sometimes don't concern us, instead of going to work, taking care of our own house, doing our own thing. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Well, in a way, but the basic focus is how we are not paying a lot of attention to unifying for the benefit of our communities.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and that is an effort that has been put forth by a division of some company or some government agency because of the fact that you have the intelligentsia, you have the strength physically, you have the strength. You've proven that.
Right.
Because if you did not have the strength, you would not have been selected to build this country for nothing.
Right.
So it's already understood your potential. So if you have somebody in your mix who has a potential to override you, you're going to provide everything that you can provide to hold these people back through the educational system and whatever part of the society that exists to maintain the status quo. When they run into a person like yourself who has this ability to change the narrative, they're going to undermine you. And all this undermining starts taking place early in life. Okay? It starts taking place early in life. It's not something that's when you get grown, then you start getting undermined. No. It's a part of the ingredients that go with making you who you are. And some people are able to overcome that. And then if you are in a position to overcome that, then you become a target as a person who is broken outside the matrix.
And so what? Wow, that's interesting. Because right now, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to dig down and try to figure out where we have went wrong. Even though some of us that know that, there's some people that I consider to be very wise people, and they still make mistakes as if they're not aware of the tricks, right?
Well, that's human. You're going to make mistakes. But the thing about it is you don't allow the mistakes to get you to stop doing what you're trying to do.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes. That's part of it.
Right. So, but we get sidetracked, and I think the conventional wisdom among, I want to say, the people that say they're smart, to say we've been taught to dislike each other. We've been taught not to unify. We've been taught and groomed not to look forward to the future and do something special for ourselves. How do you feel about that statement?
Well, they have what they call plants. They take these people who have been programmed and who have submitted to and given into the for money, of course, or psychic income. They have given into the program of undermining you, and these people are put in your midst. Okay, and a lot of them are put in your midst because they have these inferiority complexes, and somebody tells them they're better than you are, and they'll pay them to come into your mix and cause this dissension amongst your people. These people are paid to do this, and like I cannot get away from the fact that this stuff does not happen overnight.
Right.
Okay, it's something that is. See, we are always in a position as a people where we have to wind up reacting to something.
Right.
Because of the fact you don't control anything. So when something happens to you, you have to react to it. But if you're in control of something, you can build in the components that keep you from having to react to something, and you can plan attacks. Like, you don't have to react to them.
Put a real example on that so people can follow us with that. Give us an example of what that looks like. Right?
Okay.
They react to something.
For instance, you have you're trying to get a job. Okay. And you have questions that are going to be asked of you when you go to the employment place. Well, do you know about this? Do you know about that? No, you don't know about that because they're asking you questions that they know you can't answer. Mm-hmm. And then make you feel that because you couldn't answer those questions, there's some kind of way that it had something to do with the job where it really didn't. It just, there was something to throw you off so that you couldn't qualify to get the job. And then you wind up walking away from that place feeling less than But if you go in, like we talked about before, lowering your expectations, but not your standards. So you leave from that place and you say, okay, I see what this was. This was not something that had anything to do with that job. They didn't want me to have it. Okay. So you walk away from there, but you don't walk away from your desire and your responsibility of trying to get a job.
To still want it, right?
You still have to want it. You can't just walk away from it because the thing is designed to undermine you mentally, physically, spiritually, and psychologically.
So do you think that some of us that have not done well in the community is because we don't have enough self-determination?
Yeah, you have to have that. If you don't have the self-determination, then consequently you're going to put yourself in a failing category. But also, let me say this. If you were able to escape the traps of the status quo, you become identified as a rebel.
Okay.
And consequently, then the status quo has the components in place to deal with rebels. Okay? And then what they will do is they will undermine you as an individual and go to your people, through your people, and tell your people that you are nothing. But they'll have your people tell you that, or tell other black people that.
Right, which is what you talked about in the previous show about advertising and how it changes minds, because that's how they get to the other people. It ain't just they go next door and tell your neighbor. They put so much of it on TV, through shows.
That's all a part of it. That's a psychological attack they level against people who are trying to make a difference. Okay? To give you an example, back in the 60s, okay, and I use that time all the time because it was one of the better decades for our people as people who were seeking self-determination. All right? And back in the 60s, what they would do is that if you had a cultural program where you were teaching your children or the children in the area, the neighborhood, about black history, about self-reliance, but you became an enemy of the state. And they would send the police into your cultural center. That's what they did with Ahmed. That's what they did at League Park Center. They would send the police in. If you had a poetry group, and this poetry group was talking about self-determination and showing you how the oppression that was taking place in your life, who was doing it, where it was coming, the police would come in and raid your place and shut you down. So that's the same thing. Anytime that you show any individualism that you have gotten beyond the propaganda, you have gotten beyond that, then they have different areas with different people in that area, the gauntlet I was talking about. If you get past this point here, then you got another point to get past. If you get past that point, you got another point to get past.
Which is what they use things like small business loan, where you actually is proven. There was a study done recently about how we pay higher interest rates, how we pay higher interest rates on loans, and how we have housing problems and how we have loan problems. There's always something around the corner.
They didn't bring you here to compete with them. They brought you here to stay in debt, to never have any net worth, okay, to drain you. This vampirism that they have here is to drain you of anything that you have. Because they steal your work. Okay, you could talk to, I was looking at this one interview by Prince, and he was talking about how the record companies were not going to allow them to have any individuality in terms of their masters and their master tapes and all, and they were going to dictate to them how much they were going to make. I remember in the 50s, you had these people who couldn't sing. They were just a bunch of filthy thieves and robbers who were trying to tell the artists what would sell and what wouldn't sell in their neighborhoods.
Right.
That was just Shep and the Limelights, I think. Some flat hawk, whatever you want to call this maggot, was trying to tell them that the sequel to one of the songs they read wouldn't sell. It became a top seller.
And that I spent most of my life trying to make it in the music business. And as you say that, one of the things that turned me off in the 90s was some rumors I heard about some things, but I dug into the business side, and what I discovered was everyone was comfortable being a laborer, right? If you started explaining to a group of people, and I've done this a lot, this is how we get paid, it's almost like they weren't listening to you.
They don't want to hear it because they're comfortable in their zone.
They wanted the star part of it, but they didn't want to understand the business side. And I would even bring up stuff like what the Jacksons said, or maybe what even the Eagles said, or what Rolling Stone said. A lot of them didn't want to hear that part. They weren't interested. No. It's like they were trained because of what maybe somebody from an agency told them. Oh no, you're going to be a superstar. Don't worry about that. You're going to always have a manager take care of that. And so that to me, and so when you say that, I think about that's happening with every other industry now, right?
Everything that you touch, EB, they have agencies that are attached to agencies that listen to podcasts.
Yep.
They read letters.
Yep.
They listen to radio shows or TV programs. And anything that seems like it's busting through the confinement, you become a target.
And in order to be successful, and so that's one of the things as we drill down.
We have to also, when you say successful, what we have to do, But what does that really mean? Define successful, right. Because some people's success is just peace of mind.
Correct.
And some people, they look at their success as being monetary. You know, another person may look at their success as being able to grow old peacefully.
Yep.
To take care of their families in a certain kind of way. And you have people who have come to the conclusion, some of them before others do, they've come to the conclusion that the barriers that are set up for them, they're not going to be able to cross those barriers. So they tailor make their success something that they can live with.
And see, that's what I think we talked about that. And I think that one of the phrases you use is, in order for us to survive, we have to control our expectations.
Right. And you do because you're living with somebody else's expectations. You look at people like, for example, certain categories of individuals, maybe people who are less educated and who felt that in the 8th or 10th or 9th grade they were going to be rap stars. They're looking at all these guys like P. Diddy. They're looking at Snoop Dogg and Dre and all these other people. Those are the carrots that are hung out before the penitentiary gate.
Definitely happened.
Okay? Yeah. So these people push negative narratives for the people to gravitate to. So here's a person, he feels that what is advertised is his drawers hanging down to the ground, him slapping some woman, him being a pimp, him selling drugs, him shooting somebody else. That is going to be his way to success. Well, that's going to be his way to doom. But those are the images that are put out in front of our young people. So they don't put images out of a successful black scientist. Right. They don't put images out of like a Neil deGrasse Tyson. Those are not the images that they are projected to our people. The images that are projected to our youth, because their youth are getting a whole different exposure than our youth.
Well, I think when you talk about Neil deGrasse and all I find it interesting that I did not find out all of the true information about distractions and about our people until I way in my 40s. There's an illusion that what you think is what you just said is success. You know, I want a nice house, I want a nice car, but that really is not success. You want to be what I call self-reliant. And
when you start talking about success in America and success in in Africa, in an impoverished area. Okay, they just probably want the rain not to come in their house.
That's right.
Okay, and they probably want to get fresh water. They probably want to have access to a good witch doctor or a good herb doctor who can actually take care of them. They're not really on this here. And when you allow somebody like that to come to America from many of these countries, not just Africa, but from a lot of these other countries, they come here as tools to further racism and to separation between people. Because that is their ticket to get out of the poverty that they've lived in. Gotcha. Now their expectations have changed.
Gotcha.
Okay, what they want out of life now has changed. Okay, where if you have a steady situation, okay, you know that you're dealing with somebody who is basically inhuman. You already know that, or you should know it, because history points out there's not an inch of humanity in the people who have been oppressing you for 300 years. So why would you expect overnight for that to change? And then you base your attempts to make things happen based on a history of people not ever changing and causing you problems. That's when you have to understand. You have to make certain kind of psychological and mental and spiritual adjustments to that situation. Yeah. You are in hostile territory. You can't go into hostile territory without wearing boots and gloves and whatever it takes where the hostility is being performed in.
It's almost like I think about friend and I with discussion. Being black in America is like playing your home game in the visitor's court.
They move the goalposts every single time that you achieve what was supposed to be unachievable by them, by the standards that they set as being fair play. The rules of the games change.
Yeah,
and the laws are not written for those people. They're written for you, to manage you, to make sure that you can only go so far. That's the rules are made not for them. There's a whole separate rules. That's why you have secret societies. Mm-hmm. And then you have people that say, for instance, we talked about the wheelbarrows full of money going to buy a loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. And people are laboring under the illusion that they're not taking a wheelbarrow full of money, but that was only in Germany. That was only during World War II in Italy. That was in England. That was all these other. You're paying right now a wheelbarrow full of money for bread when you start putting everything in perspective. Mm-hmm. When you put everything in perspective, what you're paying for a loaf of bread now, what you used to pay for a slice of bread, you understand, was for a loaf of bread was 14 cents. Now you're paying the same thing for a slice of bread. Okay? What you were paying for a box of cereal was X amount of dollars. Now you're paying, one of the Cheerios in there now used to get 25 Cheerios for that one Cheerio. So you got a wheelbarrow going, buying all of this stuff. It's a spin game, man. And they're just spinning the lie.
But isn't it also true that those of us that are aware, like you and I, we make adjustments. Maybe we make adjustments in our expectations, but we also do something with our self-determination to decide, you can do that to them, but I'm going to limit how much of that you can do that to me. Right?
When you adjust your expectations, you automatically limit that.
Right.
You automatically limit that. Because if you're running around, I had a guy tell me one time, I signed up for my FOIA information, Freedom of Information Act. Mm-hmm. And I went through a particular congresswoman's office for that. They couldn't do anything about it. So one day I called up. They had a guy in there. He couldn't have been nothing but maybe 25 years old at the most. He almost sounded like he was 10. He was telling me something. I said, well, how am I supposed to get my FOIA report? I mean, isn't the congresswoman often supposed to help me get that done? Because in the former congresswomen, they did their job and got information that I wasn't being able to get. They did their jobs. They put pressure on certain people. You know what this guy told me, man? He said that, well, I don't know what to tell you. Nobody here in this office and nobody in the Washington office knows how to deal with the FBI. Maybe you can write a letter to the president. And he was serious. He wasn't trying to be funny.
Right.
But this is the only thing that came across his mind because he was delusional.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that there are certain things that you must do within yourself. All of us.
We have to be proactive. First, the first thing I can say, we first have to control our expectations. The second thing, we have to be self-determined. And the third thing is we have to be aware. We have to be proactive.
If you are not aware of where you are, you just like an innocent rabbit running into a wolf den. Okay, you have to understand what history is telling you.
Do you think that because of those things we just gave is the reason why they push this narrative about free marijuana and keeping us drunk, putting bars on every corner, because they know that if you can keep all of that going, that it's less likely that you're going to wake up.
What about guns? Now everybody can carry a gun.
Yeah. And
they're saying that if you're a felon, you can't have open carry, but the felons don't care about that. That's how they became felons in the first place. Right. Okay? So they don't care about open carry. They was carrying guns all the time, and they're not going to stop carrying them because of the fact they feel that some kind of way they haven't had an opportunity, and most probably are probably right, because maybe they made some wrong choices and all the rest of that. But the point is that the place offers no hope. It offers delusions. Okay, if you have a business and this business has been successful for 300 years, why would you try something that's been untried and you're making money off a system that you've had for 300 years? Why would you change it? Because of a bad conscience? I don't think so. This place doesn't have any conscience.
Right.
It has no conscience.
And one of the ways we could prove that, and for those people who, and there's some skeptics out there, and there's some assimilationists.
That's their problem.
There's some assimilationists who believe that African Americans ought to spend more time trying to assimilate. Okay. And so what my argument to them is always, when I hear Mutawaf say that, I think about the proof is that we had distractions before. They might have looked different, right? They might have been dogs in the street chasing us, but now they are actually bankers who give us different interest rates on the loans, right? Inspectors who come up in your business and tell you you got to shut down. You got all these things wrong with your house, and they take your house from you. I know people who have lost their homes, right? Because these inspectors come. The other thing is now they say we take some of the special preferences for college students away. So now those kids that were struggling to go to school, barely making it, they can't reach out to the government just get a basic loan. They can't get those special preferences that the government finally set aside for us. Those things have always happened in every century that black people have been here.
Yeah, it's just the same game with another name.
And they just change the name of it, right?
You know, they give you the hand, say, you want this hand or that hand. It's the front and back of the same hand. Yeah. Pushed, slapped, or punched. It's your choice.
Right.
They're never, ever, 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 ever of their own accord, I want to add, of their own accord, going to allow you to ever compete with them ever. It's not going to happen. And the thing about it is, the white people are just as much victims as black people. They're just, their victimology is just looks different.
Yep.
Okay, because they got them believing that they're going to be on the spaceship to Mars along with the rest of the people. They're not going to go anywhere.
Because some of what they see is they would never treat me like that because I'm them.
And some of them will accept the fact that they're going to be mistreated, but they look at that as an act of patriotism.
Okay.
Falling on the sword, for the status quo, because make no difference what it is. We're not going to allow the blacks to get ahead of us. Well, they're already ahead of you, my man.
Right.
They're already. Why do you think they're putting all of these stringent things in place now? Because of the fact of you as an individual have been able to get beyond some of those barriers.
Right. I think I saw it's in a movie when they were talking about the Black Panthers and how this leader, and I don't want to get it wrong, so I won't say his name, that he actually came out and started talking to some of the poor whites. And they were like looking at him going, wow, this guy's actually saying stuff that's attracting us.
That's the one they killed.
Right, and they wind up killing him.
Right.
And so I think about that when you and I are
Fred Hampton.
And I think about that now. If there was some group of people that said, hey, I feel what they're going through, what can I do to help? Then after a while, they would target them too. Oh,
they already have. They already have. That's why I was saying that if you have a white friend, especially if that white friend is, pretty well off. You got a good relationship with them, a human-to-human relationship.
Yeah.
You got the good vibe. You both like the same team. You both like the same food. You like the same restaurant. You like all of the same stuff. You cannot get but so close to this individual because what happens is he has a neighbor who's a Nazi.
Yep.
Okay? And he has another neighbor who is some kind of subhuman creep who would love to call the police and say, this guy's having a lot of black people over their house.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you're going to deal with them, you have to understand if you're going to maintain that relationship, you have to maintain a distance between you and them. Right. You can never be that close because at the end of the day, they're not going to move down in King Kennedy with you.
Right.
Okay? And they will put them in King Kennedy if they see that you're doing too much for them. The same thing when I keep talking about this immigration and these foreigners. They let these other people come in. As soon as they come in and they get, a taste of this thing here, they tell them, listen, the Negro is your gift. Anything you want to do with him, you can. You just don't help him. Look at the position of every foreigner that you've ever met who came into this country. They're not going to help black people do anything because they will lose their ability to function in this country. They'll get deported. They'll get accused of crimes and everything else. Just check it out. Check it out. Don't take my word for it. Just check it out.
I think about some of the stores that we go into, especially in places like Cleveland and Detroit, where there's a certain groups that own these restaurants and these stores,
and
they always have.
Well, some people, blacks who have worked don't even get an opportunity to get a job from these people simply because of the fact they're not going to hire you. They're going to hire their own people. Mm-hmm. Okay, and their own people they come here with certain expectations, and when a new group of foreigner comes in, say like this guy comes from Jordan or he comes from South America, whatever. His people are already in place to tell him, now whatever you do, don't mess with them. Okay, because if you mess with them, you're going to lose your citizenship. Don't help them. Now you can use them, all that other stuff to them, but just don't help them because you'll get deported. Okay, they have special tours for certain people who come in, and they take them through African Americans' neighborhoods and show them all of the negative stuff in the neighborhood to help them formulate this opinion as to why they treat you like they treat you, and that if you're going to be a good American citizen, then they're going to have to treat you the same way in order to fit in, to fit in. That's exactly what they do.
And the thing that you're talking about, do you think that the people that don't have the self-determination, the people that don't see it, that are clueless, do you think that works as a psychological depression for them, and they just kind of give up?
Yeah, actually, and not only that, what the point is you have certain individuals who have excelled in the government. You know, we have people like Ben Carson, an excellent surgeon, excellent guy, man. Condoleezza Rice, very smart. These are very smart people. Yeah. At one time in their life, they may have had to try to have some hope, you know, in dealing with black people. But the black people, you understand, that they came in contact with, turned them into the people that you wind up not liking.
Right.
But it wasn't. If you read some of the commentary on some of the things that Ben Carson used to write about, he was like a militant kind of guy.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then the Negroes messed him up. They got him to the point that, you know, he probably said, look here, man, I'm telling you. Okay, where you at, white man? Let me go on over here.
Right.
Because he's going to be able to make some money. He gave up. They gave up on these people, man. And then mainly because you got these people, they get in certain positions, they become worse than the white man.
Yeah.
These black, like I was telling you before when we talked about the plantation, between the dumb and the dumb Negroes, slaves, overseers, the slave master had to step to them and told them, hold on, wait a minute, man. This is private property here. You're destroying my property. I got these people here coming here to work. You're not going to do the work that they do. So stop trying to hang all my people. Stop trying to incarcerate all of my people, man. And then the dumb people, they come along and say, well, the slave master, he got these people. Okay, we got to make some money off of them people too. So we'll put them in jail and charge him money to get them out.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They're never going to quit, ever. There's no incentive to quit.
And that group that's created like that.
January 6ers.
Yeah, and the group of blacks that become that, it is better, I want to say, so there's two different groups that hurts the black neighborhood. Is that group we just talked about who decided, hey, I'm going to jump on the other side because I don't want to deal with those
hopeless
kind of people. And then there's this other group who have no clue.
Right.
They get up in the morning, they'll rob you, they'll rob me. They're not going to rob people out where the doctors live.
Because they can't move out there, because as soon as they go out there, they're going to see them and call the police.
Right. So we're caught between the oppressor,
right,
and the I'll say the group of blacks that have kind of sold their soul.
They're all oppressors. They just have different categories.
They're different categories.
Yeah, they're all oppressors because anything that goes against you being able to flourish and for you to be able to move ahead is and put in place on purpose, that is an oppression. Okay, yeah. So the people are used by the status quo to become oppressors because, number one, they're not going to live around you. So who knows your business better than the guy who is your neighbor next door? There was a guy who told me, he said one time he went down to the police station and he was talking about something, and he said, you know what? Blacks are the only people that I can think of that will get on the bus and pay the bus to come down here to tell on some other blacks.
Yes.
Okay? Now, some of them blacks need to be told on.
Right.
You understand? Because of the fact that, and some of them need to be eliminated. I mean, I'm about law and order.
Yep.
Okay? I mean, there's no problem. I'm just against white racist police who are hired and who don't even have to go through extreme background checks because of the fact they just fit the bill of somebody who's going to just shoot you without even having any consequence.
Right.
Like we talked about before about the eye-hand coordination between when a white police officer pulls his gun on a black person and he pulls it on a white person. Statistics have shown you that when he pulls it on a black person, he's more likely to use it than he would on white people. Yeah. You can see that. That's recent history where you could actually see that. Yeah. If it had been a black person who went in this supermarket and did it, he'd have been dead.
Right.
They take this little rotten demon and take him to get something at McDonald's. Why? Because the white policeman sees this white kid as his son or his cousin or his nephew or somebody who was driven to this like that because of way black people did living here. And if they wasn't ever here, he would never done it. That's the rationale that they use to justify their behavior.
So a lot of what we're talking about and a lot of things that you talk about is psychological warfare.
It's all a part of an overall. When you have, say, like you're getting ready to go into battle, you have the Army, you have the Air Force, you have the Navy, you have Special Forces, you have the Marines, you have all these various sniper divisions. You have all of these. That's all a part of the entire assault. So you take whatever you need to make an intrusion into this part of the enemy's territory. And then you come in, you send in the backup, then you send in the maintenance forces, then you send in the businesses. After you've cleared everything out, then you send in the businessmen who back the army in the first place to go in and take these people's stuff. You go into a country, you kill all the people, you destroy their stuff, you take their wealth, and then the people who fight against you, they're called insurgents.
Right.
This is their country.
Right.
And they're not supposed to fight against you, and consequently, because when they do, they become the enemy. You understand, for defending their own stuff.
Yes, it goes back to what you said earlier, that if you start unifying, you become, I think you used the word...
it's treason.
Treason.
Yeah, go someplace right now. You know, and even in the matters of culture, okay, if you're talking about black culture, that's monitored. Just like we're talking about certain areas of where you have to outline where your ideas of being okay with something. You have to outline and say, well, I'm okay with this, can't do that. But it's the same thing with them. They're looking at okay, so this is a black poet, this is a black culture here. Okay, what are they talking about? Mm-hmm. Okay, if there's anything in that speech, if there's anything in the behavior or in that group, if it looks like that group is congealing around an idea that's anti what they've been programmed as a group of people to propagate, you become a target.
That's funny because I was reading something on Paul Robeson and how he was a frequent traveler to some places in Russia.
Right.
These peasants were paying him to sing, and he started falling in love with these people. These people took care of him.
Right.
And I think the United States government wanted him to call them names and say that they were this and that, right? And one interesting thing about that didn't surprise me, but what surprised me is that Jackie Robinson was speaking on, I guess, to Congress about something, and they asked him, do you think Paul Robeson is treasonous? Do you think? And after a while, because they kept putting words to him and he was looking for something special from them, he finally said, yes, I think he is.
Of course.
And Paul Robeson wound up, he lost his passport, and his wife, who was white, by the way, she said that he lost his will to earn a living or something he's always done, all because he didn't agree with the United States government. Because his premise was, I'm not going to say anything about Russian people who treat me better than my own country.
Yeah, and the thing about it, think about, what's his name, South African president was in the penitentiary all this year. Mandela. They wanted him to, here the United States government was supporting an apartheid government, killing black people, incarcerating and taking their land. They supported them. And then when Cuba was sending in military to help fight against that, they wanted Mandela to speak out against the Cubans and to speak out against the Russians who were helping them. You understand? So it doesn't make any, and the reason that they can be like that is because of the fact everything that they have done and continue to do to you, you don't speak out against it. It's like, yeah, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
You understand? No. And you can't have principles living in a situation where there are no principles allowed. The only principles that you can have is to repeat what somebody's telling you to repeat in order for you to be all right. Period. That's it.
Well, one of the things that I want to, kind of close out the show with is, and just based on some things that we've already talked about, is the three things that separate the next generation, or I want to use the word hope. I'll say a better generation of black people is, again, what you mentioned: self-determination, control your expectations, and learn as much as you can about how things are supposed to work and how they work. Because I think that the ignorance creeps in, and when the ignorance creeps in, everything that you want to do changes. Because you stop asking, you think Mutawaf Shaheed, he's a militant, or E.B. Smith, he's always talking about this stuff. Then you become ignorant, you don't want to hear anything I have to say. But then when you run into that wall, you come back to us, and by that time, you've already turned us into the monster. We're not the monster.
You become scarred. And once you're scarred, you're never the same. Okay, and sometimes people have to get scarred in order for them to learn. And the thing about this generation, when you start looking at the last 35 years of the present generation, I mean, like your generation, okay, just ask yourself, what have you been able to accomplish as a generation of people working in unison to develop something? And have you built a hospital yet?
Nope.
No. Have you built a nursing home? Have you done anything where black people, that you built it for them to be able to benefit from it?
That is something to say, right?
So maybe where is it?
Yeah,
show me.
Yeah, that is something to say. That we can leave that with people. If what we're saying here, if you doubt any of it, that is something we need to talk about, right? That is something you need to ask yourself. What have we done as a group that we benefited from in the last 40 years?
Right.
Now, before that, in maybe the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s, we could say that there are some things that have changed, that have moved, the needle moved, because they work together. But since the Civil Rights Act, there's not been anything that has been done as a whole by us together that has benefited us.
Well, in the 1930s and 40s and those eras, this is when you had black townships. They were forced to have to deal with each other because of segregation.
Gotcha.
They didn't have a choice. They couldn't go to the hospital. They had to figure out something that they had to do for themselves because they were not permitted to have access. Okay? And that goes to show you that when they tried to build something for themselves, to have access for themselves, they destroyed it. They're never going to allow you to have anything for yourself, because you weren't brought here for that. And you got those snakes sitting up in Congress, sitting up in the Senate, and all these other places, vote for me and I'll set you free. They're not going to be able to do anything because they're surrounded, okay? They just wind up with a nice, good pension and good health care when they retire from those places. They can't do anything for you, anything of any significance. Why would somebody give you the right to vote? These people took this stuff by violence. By violence. Now, some kind of way, somebody's going to give you the right to go in a booth and just write them out of office, write them out of power. I mean, what kind of sense does that make, man? It don't even make sense. I'm not saying don't vote, but I'm just saying in terms of your expectations,
control
once again.
Your expectations.
If you actually think you're going to put some black lady or some black guy or somebody in there who's going to look out for you, they're limited as to what they can do. That's why they allow them in the first place.
Control your expectations. I think you said something in that. The one thing I can say about what you just said is that, and I guess this is the overall thought, the local politicians and the local community is what we should be more worried about than the national, because what goes on our local community is we can actually touch these people. We can talk to them. We could, show them, because I think some of the things that somehow kind of met you, because we were involved with some local things, right? Some local politicians. And I think you were telling me a story before how one of the ministers, when one of the mayors was running, how they were lowering their expectations and said it out loud, right?
Yeah, he said, just give us some crumbs off of the table. But you have to realize America is run by corporations. Mm-hmm. The president and all those people in Congress are for sale. Okay, and the president is a figurehead. He does exactly, how's a guy who doesn't have any money going to tell people who got all the money what to do? It don't make sense, especially when you have a society that's based on money. Or the corporations, they run everything. Okay, or even with a local politician. Okay, you put him in all, he can maybe take care of a couple of his friends, but he can't solve the problem, you understand, of crime in the street and all that. He'll get up and he's a politician because he's a good speaker. Okay, because he can communicate and con people into believing that he's really going to do something. Let a corporation step up to him and tell him, look, we're going to back you for being the mayor, or we're going to back you for being so-and-so. His entire situation will change unless he just says, look, I don't want that. I'm about my people. Then they crush him, shut him down, and then he's right here with the rest of everybody else.
I've definitely been involved with somebody that...
They're all about... Anytime anybody gets in there, they say that they're doing it for the benefit of the people. That's yaki-daki.
So let's close with saying community. What does community mean? How can community help solve some of the ills of the black neighborhood? Let's close with talking about that.
Okay, well, number one, in the word community, the middle part of that is unity. Okay, that's the key word. There is in community, there's unity, and that's in the middle of that whole word. And until you have that, until you have a single group of people who are functioning on a particular idea, then you're not going to have any unity. Consequently, you won't have a community. You'll have neighborhoods. Okay, you'll have neighborhoods, and in those neighborhoods are all kind of people. Okay, you have these street clubs and all the rest of this kind of stuff. Our people are so insecure and so messed up psychologically, they will do anything for recognition. Okay, so there's no real true sense of bringing a community together to accomplish something. There was one thing that I saw happen with a street club one time, and it was very effective because they were all being affected by crime coming from a few different individuals who lived in the neighborhood. They got together, the street club got together right here on 115th Street. They got together and they approached the landlords of these people they were renting to, who were the core problems of all the crime in the area, in the immediate area. They got together and they got the people evicted. That was a victory. Okay. Then after that, there were no common threads that they had to work to get stuff together, even though there are a lot of needs and necessities that they needed to be working on to get certain things changed. You're too small. Right. You may be able to control a street if you have certain people who are committed to certain things, but you'll have a single mother where her dope selling child is the one who's taking care of the whole family. You think she's going to cooperate with the police to turn this guy in? I don't think so.
So it keeps the psychological profile of our community is broken. I'm of the belief that there are people that are self-determined, and to be honest with you, it's starting to be these young, idealistic females that are kind of like clueless, but then start discovering some information and start helping. And everyone that I thought had a good thought was learning what you and I know. They were learning it. They read some books and they started doing some research and said, "Oh my goodness, we're not as free as I thought we were." Right? When you get to a certain point,
they have something to undermine you, and they have so many things that they can do to a person, and nobody's going to actually believe. Number one, because somebody doesn't see you as a threat. You understand? They're not going to believe that you really are a threat to anybody. So when things start happening to you and you try to explain, well, these people are doing this, it's like, why would they do that to you? You ain't nobody. But the people actually see you better than you see yourself as a people, because that is why you're going through what you're going through, to suppress anything that you have, because you are a genius, because you have proven yourself to be resilient, and they know that. So consequently, they have everything in place to make sure you don't succeed. They'll never submit.
This has been Facts Matter with E.B. Smith. We have concluding our process of talking about the real state of Black America. Stay tuned for more shows. If you got any comments, or maybe you want more of what we're talking about, you can reach me at ebsmithproject@live.com. Please be respectful. Leave me a comment. I'll leave some description links in the bottom of the pages for C.E. Shao, Mutawaf Shaheed's writings, and some more podcasts. Thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate you. Thank you for listening. This is E.B. Smith, WEBS Radio.